there, my loves. Welcome. Thank you for popping in once more. Now, if you'll remember, last week I slapped a nice juicy cock across your chops in the form of Michael Moorcock's Behold the Man. So today I thought I would drop a nice heavy dick on you for good measure. Flow my tears, the policeman said, by Philip K. Dick. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, old Jim is so obsessed with penises that he's purposely read these books back to back, reviewing them one after the other as a joke. Well, I can tell you right now, I would never, ever do anything quite so puerile as that. But no, it was pure. It was a pure accident, I must say. But it did get me thinking, are there other names, other science fiction authors of yesteryear, or perhaps of a more contemporary nature, that have names that are amusing? You know, names of a similar ilk, shall we say. For whatever reason, the name Geoffrey Todger popped into my mind. Turns out this chap doesn't exist. I don't know where the hell I got that from, but it would have been a great addition to what could be a nice running series of penis-related namesakes. Let's put it that way. Anyway, if you happen to know of any that fit this description, do let me know, and we can go from here. Right, okay, all that nonsense out of the way. No more talk of penises for the time being. Now, let's look at the cover first. This is a scan of my edition, the SF Masterworks edition, and we've got this absolutely beautiful painting on the front here by British illustrator Chris Moore, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year. A great loss indeed. But it does indeed, it seems to reference the book itself. We've got the main protagonist there, this 40-something gentleman, and a couple of women there that look slightly miffed with him. So, and if we go to the website, of course, we see that the painting is indeed called Flow My Tears, the policeman said. So this was a commission for this book, rendered in acrylics, and it looks absolutely fabulous. Now, I've got a nice scan of it that I found online, so let's have a deeper dive into the image itself and see just how splendid it is. All right, so here we are. This is the image in all its glory. On the book jacket there, it's cropped around here, around the midpoint, but it really does look wonderful, doesn't it? Now, these are called Q-Man prints. I had to look this up. I'd never heard of this, but I think it's an early form of digital scanning. So we have a really nice quality image here. The colours, incidentally, are quite different to the image that's shown on Chris Moore's website. The blues are slightly different, and yeah, there's a slightly different saturation going on, but we don't need to worry about that. But look at the detail here. Look at this face. Wonderful stuff. And the reflection under the chin there of this motor carriage, whatever the hell it is. And the face, look at this face. She looks very disgruntled indeed. And we have another young woman over here that appears to be slightly more happy, with slightly wonky legs. But we can forgive that because the overall image is wonderful. His work for me there's a kind of photorealism going on here. They are like snapshots from another dimension, aren't they? So if we look at the metal work here, the reflections going on here, this distorted reflection of the protagonist there, even the little bling there on his bracelet, and down here on the windshield, these kind of marks. It's really wonderful stuff. I'm assuming this was achieved with an airbrush, perhaps, with his use of acrylics. I'm not quite sure, but overall, a fantastic image. Wonderful stuff. All right, so yeah, the last thing I'll say is not to harp on too much about the image, but I absolutely love it. I think they've done a slight disservice to Chris Moore's work here compared to the scan of it. The scan is far more, the light levels are far more balanced. On the cover, it's very dark, and this is a problem with reproduction in terms of print. Sometimes it's slightly wrong. I think they've given too much. It's slightly oversaturated perhaps, and the shadow that's cast across that young woman's face in the flying vehicle in the foreground is far too dark. But there we are. This is just one of my bugbears, and it doesn't really matter, does it, my loves? Right, should we get to the story itself now? Why not? Okay, so we are following here, the main protagonist of the story is a chap called Jason Taverner. And he's in his he's about 43, something like that. And he's a really famous television personality, a celebrity, really rich, well connected. And he has a weekly television show with an audience of over 30 million viewers. So it's really interesting. I suppose it's due to the time this was written. It's that old form of television entertainer. They sing, they dance, they present, they do a bit of stand-up comedy. He does the whole lot. Really handsome fella. Interestingly, he's also the product of a genetic experiment, my labs. He's what's called a six. I think they're called the sixes. A form of humanity that's superior in every kind of way, really, but has been subsequently outlawed. So he has to keep that aspect of himself hidden. So we meet him at the very beginning of the book on the set of one of his television shows. And yes, at the height of his fame, loving life, all is rosy. Perhaps the second chapter, he's in a dingy motel room and he's got nothing on him. He's fully clothed, my loves, but he hasn't got any forms of identification on him. And he's thinking, how the hell did I get here? He quickly realizes that all evidence of his existence has been wiped from reality. So people's memories, the data banks, everything. And so he's in one hell of a pickle here, because this vision so it's set in the late 1980s. This vision of the future is bleak, to say the least. There's a police state scenario here. So the whole of North America, it would appear to be centered there, although there is suggestions that this could be a worldwide situation whereby the police rule the roost here, following the Second Civil War in America. So a second civil war's happened and the police are fully in control. They have roadblocks everywhere. So if you don't have identification with you, you are sent straight to forced labor camps. Universities are pushed underground, and any of them, due to their transgressive and progressive ideas, I suppose, they're kept underground, and if they ever surface, they are hoisted off to the forced labour camps as well. So Jason Taverner is in one hell of a dire straits here. He can't move anywhere, so there's roadblocks everywhere. This is mostly centred in Los Angeles, and so he can't even get down to the end of the road without being arrested. So what follows is a very convoluted adventure whereby he's trying to get fake IDs and things like that, and trying to get to the bottom of what's happened. Why has the whole world forgotten who he is? One of the most famous people on the planet by all accounts. Now, I'm not going to get into the story itself and what happens. There won't be any spoilers here from me, just because I don't want to get into the hellish pit of despair that it would be trying to make sense of this damn book. So, like any Philip K. Dick work that you might have read, this follows a similar path in that at times it's largely incomprehensible what's going on, and for various reasons the way people talk to each other is odd, the syntax of sentences and things like that. Random things will just pop out of nowhere, and and there are mistakes. Now, grammatical mistakes, punctuation, things like that. Now, I'm not sure if that's just sloppy writing and subsequently sloppy editing. I think it's more the fault of that, or whether it's all intended. I don't know. It's always that kind of conundrum reading any kind of Philip K. Dick novel. You don't know what's intended, what isn't, whether it's just splurged out or what. I mean, I like the fact that his novels tend to be rough around the edges. They're incomplete. You form your own opinions of them. It feels like I came up with this metaphor lying in bed last night. So the standard straightforward science fiction novel is like walking out across a landscape, and occasionally you walk up a hill and you can look ahead and you know what's coming. there are surprises here and there, the odd chasm that you might inadvertently drop into. A Philip K. Dick novel is slightly different. You're given a brief glimpse of the way ahead, and then a blindfold's put over your head, and someone whispers in your ear, "There's open mine shafts ahead, but I'm not going to tell you where they are." And then you just blunder out into this landscape. Occasionally you fall very deep and get hurt, but you climb back out and see wonders. So that's the way I like to get to grips with Philip K. Dick novels. You've got to kind of sit back from it slightly. Any expectations you might have about what it's about and where it's going, just throw them out of the damn window and just get carried on the wave of his wonderful imagination. Now, it's always misleading, isn't it, with any of these novels? You have this fantastic image on the front, and you're picturing that scenario, and you're expecting something of that ilk, the setting, the technology. But when we get to grips with the technology, there are flying cars in this, but it's done so in a very offhand manner. There's no emphasis placed on the technology itself. It's merely there. It merely functions to get people around. So you take that part of it out of the equation and certain other little things, and it wouldn't necessarily even be science fiction. But there we are. That's the wonderful world of these novels. Now, I said there won't be any spoilers. There won't be. The only thing I will say is that the ending was slightly disappointing. Only because throughout this book, you're left all at sea, really. You don't know what's going on. You don't know, like Jason Taverner himself, you're tying yourself up in knots trying to work out what's happened to him, why it's happened, and how it might work its way out. Unfortunately, towards the end, an explanation is given, which unfortunately crystallizes the whole novel and makes sense of it. Usually Philip K. Dick's novels are far more open-ended, and you get to the end, you don't know where the hell you are. You've taken the blindfold off and you're going, Christ, how the hell did we get here? And why isn't anyone telling me how I got here? So this one disappointed me slightly because I found out what was going on. That was disappointing, but at the same time satisfying. So I was in that kind of, I was slightly ambivalent there. I was satisfied on one level, but in knowing what had happened, it kind of diminished it all, if you know what I mean. It's that age-old problem with these kind of things. Do you leave it open or do you close the devil down? This one was closed down, my loves, although there is still room for some manoeuvring. However, there is the very end kind of puts the nails in the coffin. That's all I'll say. Anyway, there we are. Let's leave it there. That wasn't too bad, was it? We'll see when I get to watch it again and edit the devil. Anyway, let's bring the devil down and give it a damn good thrashing. Now, I've always loved the work of Philip K. Dick. I think there's something mystical almost about his writing. Something, it is always surreal, of course, but there's hidden depths here that you feel as though you're only just interacting with. I know there's more scholarly people that know far more about Philip K. Dick's life and his writing and what he meant, the symbolism involved, things like that. I don't get into any of that. I just like interacting with it with what I've got remaining of my brain. But this was tickling my fancy, other than the things that were slightly more nailed down. So I'm going to give this 3 stars out of 5. Splendid. Right, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of that. And if you haven't read it, I strongly urge you to try it. I mean, if you are a veteran Dick reader, shall we say, I don't think you'll have any problem passing this novel. But if you are new to the world of Dick, then tread carefully, my loves. There's probably easier places that you might be able to start your adventures. Perhaps don't start with this one. It might leave you slightly vexed at times. But anyway, there we are. That's my review. Next week there will be one of my book hauls. I was going to have it today, but yeah, I wanted to do that bit at the beginning. You know, talk about cock and dick and penises and all that. Anyway, remember, if you do know any names that I might like or might fancy searching out and reading, do let me know, and there'll be another review coming down the line involving penis names. Anyway, thanks for watching, and cheerio, my loves.